This is Lois Whaley for Women Today and Yesterday. My guest today is Sarah Conley-Ballew, who is the person who's promoting energy in Athens County through Upgrade Athens County. And Sarah and I will be talking in just a minute. But first, I want to speak about some women of the past, which is the way I usually begin my program, using this book by Kirsten Olson called Remember the Ladies. And so these are some women from early July, Sarah. The first one they mention for July 1st was born, she's better known by her pen name. Her pen name was George Sand, George Sand, a French woman who lived in the 19th century and who wrote under a pseudonym, male pseudonym, actually. But she was quite a gal, and she was born on July 1st in 1804. And she lived in Paris for a long time. Probably her best-known lover was the Polish composer and pianist Frédéric Chopin.
Oh, wow.
And but she had a number of other liaisons, and she wrote 80 novels.
Wow.
She was a pretty busy,
prolific, yeah,
very busy person. And then for July 2nd, we have Anna Howard Shaw. This is a picture of her. As you can see, quite a matronly lady. She was a big promoter of women's suffrage, and she was sort of a right-hand person with better known people like Susan B. Anthony, who was in charge of the National Women's Suffrage Association, and she actually followed Anthony as president. And she was a woman from our territory. I think she might have lived in Ohio part of the time, but she also lived in Pennsylvania.
My hometown.
And maybe you've heard of her.
Her name's familiar, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, as I say, she was one of the pioneers for women's suffrage, although it turned out that she was not as good an organizer as Carrie Chapman Catt, who both preceded her and followed her as president of the National Women's Suffrage Association. And then for July 3rd, we have Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and we're going to have a picture of her on the air that shows Charlotte Perkins Gilman, probably, maybe when she was about 30 years old. She was born in 1860.
Okay.
And she was a very accomplished woman in her day, a writer. And we were talking beforehand about the fact that she wrote a famous novelette called The Yellow Wallpaper. You remember reading that?
Indeed, I do. That book certainly, novelette, as you say, it's a short one, had quite an impact. I felt as though I'd never read something that had such a kind of
just memorable.
Tormented, but very memorable.
Right.
Very memorable.
Called The Yellow Wallpaper. And it's about a woman who's descending into madness.
Yeah.
And this yellow wallpaper figures because she's shut up in an attic room and doesn't have anything to do and so on. And she begins to imagine that there's something behind the wallpaper.
Indeed.
And she circles the room, finally again and again in madness. Yes, I remember reading it as a girl, reading that story as a girl, The Yellow Wallpaper, but I didn't know her name. I didn't remember her name. And you said that you'd forgotten her name too.
It's been a good 10, 15 years since I've read it. Yes. It was nice to be reminded.
Charlotte Perkins Gilman.
Yes.
And she was really recounting us something that she herself had experienced. because after the birth of her daughter, she had a terrible depression, which does strike some women, you know.
Indeed.
They even have a name for it.
Yes.
Postpartum depression.
Uh-huh.
And so on. And the cure that was attempted in those days was to absolutely forbid women to do anything.
Yeah.
And sort of shut them in a room, feed them a lot of food, you know, but not let them read or paint or do anything.
Yeah.
And no wonder some of them went mad.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And especially someone like Charlotte Perkins Gilman, who was very talented and wanted to do things in life and did afterwards, after she came out of that depression and wrote about the Yellow Wallpaper in the mid-1890s. And later she wrote a book called Women in Economics in the late, about 1898, which was sort of the first feminist take on economics.
Fascinating.
Yes.
I have not heard of that. I'll have to look at it.
And another thing that she did that was fascinating was she published a magazine for a number of years, and she wrote absolutely everything in the magazine. She wrote fiction and nonfiction. She even wrote the advertisements. And
oh, my goodness.
that sort of thing for about 10 years, I believe.
Wow.
So.
Now that's talent.
And in addition, she wrote a short novel, which if you haven't read, I would recommend to you. It's called Her Land.
I know the title. I'll have to look at it again.
Right. It's a utopian story.
Interesting.
About a land where there are only women, and they have to do everything, and you know, so on. So, Her Land, and that was probably about 1912 or so on. But Charlotte Perkins Gilman was a very interesting person.
Quite influential, yeah.
And at the end of her life, she took her own life because she was dying of breast cancer.
Wow.
And so when she decided it was time to go, she had arranged to get some chloroform, I guess it was.
I see.
And she committed suicide in 1935.
It's a long and productive life.
Yes,
Yeah.
a very productive life, but she ended it. Charlotte Perkins Gilman, 1860 to 1935.
Wonderful.
Very interesting woman indeed. And now, let's talk some about Upgrade Athens County.
Absolutely, I'd like to. I guess we can start with the beginning. Upgrade Athens County is a project that launched mid-year 2014. So we're not, well, we're
Kinda
reaching
new.
1 year, but not quite. Yeah. It's a new initiative that aims to bring Athens County forward into a new energy economy. We've identified the opportunities in becoming more energy independent, but not only energy independent, we also feel as though we have a long ways to go and a lot of opportunity in making our buildings more energy efficient in Athens County. So Upgrade Athens County is a project of the Southeast Ohio Public Energy Council. SOPEC is a more familiar term. And SOPEC is the organization that has brought together local governments, the City of Athens, unincorporated Athens County, the Village of Amesville, and the Village of Trimble, to serve as the aggregation, to aggregate our electricity purchasing power.
Bring it all together.
Indeed, yes. So the customers in the aggregation area have not only affordable energy based upon, competitive with the marketplace of other energy suppliers, but we also have programming for energy efficiency and renewable energy. So it's a pretty innovative model and one that has just is just now gaining traction in Ohio, using the community choice aggregation as a vehicle or a tool for energy efficiency programming and renewable energy to be paired with it.
So this is something that individual homeowners can do, or renters too, I guess. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's Upgrade Athens County is for all of us. We're hoping that it brings everyone further along, raises everyone's energy IQ, and gets people really thinking about how much energy they use in a day, where their energy is going, how much energy is wasted.
Yeah.
And wasting energy is not only, a detriment to the environment, it's also a detriment to your pocketbook. And
yes, that's for sure.
We really need to be cognizant of those things. And energy prices are going up in spite of the natural gas boom and such. We do have, there will continue to be a rise. So the more energy you can save, the better.
Yes, yeah.
And on top of that, how valuable and plentiful sun resources are, that solar energy really is, has become as affordable as the, as we call it, brown energy supply.
Fossil fuel.
The fossil fuel energy, yes. So our goal is to see more solar energy generated in Athens County. And the part about being generated in Athens County is incredibly important to us. Sure, there's a lot of wind turbines going up out west, solar energy in the southwest, and areas where the sun shines a lot longer. And yet, by just relying on those energy sources alone, we don't bring that strong economic impact to Athens County that we really can have simply by focusing on local generation projects.
Right.
So that's a big priority for us.
I at one time lived for a while, and I've lived in Europe a couple of times. My husband is a European historian. I should say a historian of Europe.
Yes, indeed.
But we've lived in Germany and England and Spain. And Germany in particular is interesting because there isn't a great deal of, you don't have a great feeling that there's a lot of sun.
Good point, absolutely, yes.
And yet they are probably the most energy efficient and energy producing country in Europe.
Absolutely, and
in spite of the fact that the sun doesn't shine every day.
Right.
There.
I think that Germany in particular has designed an incredibly useful model of combining different renewable energy sources and not simply relying on the sun, not simply relying on a geothermal method where the energy is latent in the ground and is generated and used on the surface. They're also, they rely on biodigesters and models that use biomass, which is opportunity that the United States has yet to really maximize on.
Well, it would be interesting to know how you got involved with Upgrade Athens County specifically. I mean, you must have a background in energy science, or?
Well, you'd think I might have. My interest in this project in particular actually came more out of my desire to have a stronger and more sustainable community in Athens.
Yes.
And the work that I've done has actually been focused around food. I used to be the market manager at Athens Farmers Market.
Oh, okay.
For a number of years, and in that role, and also working with community food initiatives on their board, and as an early community garden manager, I really got to be a catalyst in our local food economy in a way that was very personally fulfilling, and I think made a strong impact on the way our community has developed.
So did you have a garden at the community garden yourself?
I did. I did. I do have, my husband and I have 9 acres just about 10 minutes from Athens, and so we garden at home. So I didn't necessarily need a plot, though I guess when I lived in the city of Athens for a year, I did have a garden plot there. But we've basically stayed outside of the city for the 15 years I've been here, so we grow our own garden at home.
But so what's coming on?
Oh, right now? Well, yesterday we pulled a lot of garlic, and thank goodness, because it was just starting to look like it was molding. So we thought, all right, get it out, and devised a system to really dry it and dehumidify it, because there's just so much humidity in the air, and we don't do air conditioning, so we've rigged up some fans and, tried to make an environment where it can dry.
Oh,
so
great.
It's a complicated process, though.
Sounds like you probably use a lot of garlic in your cooking.
Absolutely, yes, indeed. And we co-garden with our neighbors, Danny and Patty Yahini, and they use a lot of garlic, too. So we've definitely planted enough for both families for the year, so that'll be good. Yeah.
Well, that reminds me that when we lived in Spain, which was in 1978, we were there for about half a year. Our 2 younger children were in high school at the time.
Wow.
And so we took them with us to Spain for the year, or half a year anyway. But so I did some marketing, of course, because different sort of marketing. I mean, not a supermarket kind of place, but a place where you go and there are stalls and people have things set out and so forth. And so there were bags of garlic. They're sort of like we have bags of onions here.
Yeah, sure.
In a mesh bag kind of thing that you can buy a whole bag of garlic. And I thought, I don't use that much garlic in my cooking, as it happens. So I asked the person if I could have just 1 clove garlic, and he was astounded.
That you'd only use 1, yes.
I'd only use 1 clove garlic.
Well,
you don't want a whole bag of garlic. They use a lot of garlic in Spain.
Oh wow! It's a very high priority food in my house. We use a lot of garlic.
Garlic time
yes.
at the garden, at any rate.
Yes, indeed.
Well, did you garden as a little girl? I mean, did your family?
Actually, no. I didn't really find my green thumb until I was, maybe 20, 21. So, yeah, it's something that I've had to kind of teach myself, and it's a wonderful pastime. I enjoy it very much, and wish I had more time for it. It seems I'm increasingly away from my house and away from, the opportunity to grow food, and yet, we manage it one way or another. We actually put in quite a large garden this year, and it's right next to our chicken coop, so the chickens have, room to graze right nearby, and
free range.
Yes, indeed. We do let them free range when it's safe.
Well, of course, you have to keep an eye out for foxes and
raccoons,
other characters that like chicken.
Yeah, never a dull moment with that.
Well, I can recall as a child, I had a very variegated childhood in a way. I grew up in Nevada.
Interesting.
And, of course, there's a lot of sun out there.
Absolutely.
That's where the skies are not cloudy all day.
Sure.
As they say in the song. But one of the lives that I had was on a farm. Of course, out west, everything is called a ranch.
True.
Doesn't matter how big it is.
Yeah.
It's a ranch. But on our ranch, we had chickens. And I can remember them coming, as they still do, to the post office.
Following behind you, or?
No, I mean as babies.
When they arrive, yes.
When they arrive in
That's
a big
great
box.
day when they come in the. Well, I have ours shipped to Amesville, and so I'll go into, we're right near Amesville. That's kind of the commute. My kids go to school there, and I love that day when I order the chickens and they come in the mail and they're peeping in the little box. Yeah.
When you walk in the door, they are all sounding out.
I know.
Beep, beep, beep.
I know. That's my favorite phase with chickens, is when they're little bitties, and once they're just big, and yeah, it's not as fun.
Right. Well, I can remember, too, being kind of under the thumb of old hens.
Ah, yes.
Old hens, if they decide it's time for them to set, they don't want anyone to bother them.
Oh, no. A roosting
them,
chicken?
Take their eggs out from under them or anything like that.
We've had some of
and,
that,
And they're very likely to peck you pretty hard.
Indeed. And go right back to doing what they were doing.
Yes,
yeah.
right.
Yes, we've had that, too.
But, so I do remember both of those things. Also, we had like a mason jar with filled with water, and with a top that would screw on, and the water would come out the little holes.
Sure.
So that the chickens could help themselves.
I'm using one of my favorite mason jars for our chicken watering container, and I just recently cleaned it real good, and I thought, this is such a good mason. It's one of those really big old ones, kind of square. And it's an Atlas. So anyway.
Yeah, well, they come in very useful, those mason jars.
Yes. My husband often laughs at me because I have such a collection.
Do you do canning?
I have. I found that my canning abilities are not quite as up to par as there are some things I will can. Yes, I mean I always do jam. I do put up I've put up sauces and beans at times, but
beans are rather you have to be very careful with beans.
Indeed,
because you could get botulism.
I know.
From home canned beans, they have to be very, very, especially.
Indeed. To follow the recipe pretty darn close.
Yeah.
I have a good friend who I always rely on as my, support person. She helps me with the pressure canner, so that's been good.
Well, I can remember my mother putting up a lot of tomatoes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And the tomatoes were sort of fun. The fun part is taking the skins off.
Yeah, yes.
That's sort of fun, anyway.
I know it. It's interesting you ask about how I learned to garden, and as we're talking, I've thought of really my biggest influence was the year I spent working at Rich Tomsu and Ann Fugate's farm.
Oh, yes.
Rich Gardens Organic Farm, and that was 2002, I want to say. And Rich keeps an incredibly beautiful garden. His soil is, you can bury your arm without running into a root or rock the whole way down. And his just such an amazing grower. And the experience of learning from him was really valuable, and certainly from Anne too. And she would make this big farm lunch, which I've never been hungrier than when I worked on their farm and picked asparagus, and that was a really delightful experience.
Right.
And
well, the out of doors working.
Indeed.
Spurs your appetite on, doesn't it?
It does. Absolutely. That and when I was pregnant, 2 hungriest times in my life, I'd
yes. Right. It's and it's really good when you can go right out to the garden and get something fresh.
It's true. It's true. That's
very
really
nice.
Satisfying.
Well, tell us a little bit more about Upgrade Athens County specifically. I noticed that this brochure, which you have, which is very colorful and lists a number of the co-sponsoring groups here that have helped SOPEC, Southeast Ohio Public Energy Council, with aggregation of electricity. And here it mentions the Energy Education Fund, Energy Education. what specifically does Upgrade Athens County do in the field of energy education?
Well, we realized early on that one of the biggest challenges in Athens County is that we need to learn more about energy. And as we all know, a good time to begin is when you're young and when you've in the classroom, where you can have some hands-on activities and learn from a curriculum about energy and the many uses and generation of and all of those things. So our organization said, instead of actually developing the curriculum, which there's plenty of curriculum out there for energy education, the role that we would play is to create a fund that can provide the financial resources needed for an organization in our community or organizations in the community to have access to the funding needed to do this programming and to bring
to get the resources.
Right.
Do you have a resource library, or is it more like a bibliography?
We don't have a resource library. We have a committee of organizations that we partner with. So that includes Kids on Campus, the Ohio Valley Museum of Discovery, Rural Action and their environmental education program. We've also worked with local artist and illustrator Keith Wild. So just this year, we awarded our first awards went out to, as I mentioned, Rural Action, the Ohio Valley Museum of Discovery, and to Keith Wild, so that they can fund some interesting energy projects. The Ohio Valley Museum of Discovery is going to create a hybrid house exhibit.
Oh, really?
And if you've been to any of their museum exhibits, they're excellent. They're hands-on, experiential learning for kids and adults, because I know when I go in with my kids, we play, and I learn as much as they do. So they're going to be bringing in some exhibition pieces from the Smithsonian, and I believe in the wintertime is when they plan to launch the hybrid house model and exhibit.
Hybrid house?
Yeah, hybrid house.
Well, now what would a hybrid house be?
Good question. I want to say that part of the exhibit is a demonstration, sort of small-scale model home that has features in it that are more energy efficient, and maybe they also demonstrate how a renewable energy system, such as a solar array, could be attached and how that does save energy in a house. So. Well, I haven't seen the exhibit. These are my guesses. I think it will be sort of a hands-on look-through at a more energy efficient and renewable energy based home.
So, and you mentioned the museum specifically, Discovery Museum. Where is that located?
That is located in the Market on State Mall, in one of the storefronts there, and they have revolving exhibits. I know that I want to say maybe 3 or 4 exhibits per year, and the topics are wide-ranging. They've had exhibits on sort of science-based exhibits, but music exhibits, and they're always very interesting and fun and very engaging.
Well, I think they've been around not a tremendously long time, but maybe 5 or 6 years.
I think so.
And they were originally there at the old airport, which is now the place where the pool and the community center and so on is located.
Right.
They were there at one time. So I guess I didn't realize they were at the mall.
At the mall, indeed, they are. Yep. And I think it's a great space, especially on Saturdays when people come to market and then they go in and they bring their kids to the exhibit. So it's a wonderful opportunity.
Well, of course, there's Goodies is there, and Elder Bierman, and there's a sports place there also, I believe.
Indeed.
Dunham's. In which part of the mall is the museum?
It's in the side closest to, let's see, it's across from a store called Maurice's, and there's a salon, I want to say, right next door to it. So as you come in the main entrance to the mall, if you make a left,
I see.
you'll head back to the
There was a
area.
penny store down there, or
Yes.
I think at one time.
Now it's Tractor Supply is over that way, though you can't get to Tractor Supply through the mall, which I always found sort of silly.
But the museum is
Right
closer
back in
to
there.
downtown, I guess.
I guess you could say, yes, indeed.
In a sense, because it's a long mall.
It's a long mall. It would be hard to miss if you especially if you walk the mall area. You won't miss it. So.
You'd go right by it.
Yeah,
yes.
indeed.
So it was probably at one time a store of some sort.
I would think so. Yes, I would think so.
Well, that's nice, and it's good to know where it is. And,
Absolutely.
Do you have an idea of their times?
I don't have an idea of their times. I want to say that I know they are open on Saturdays when there's a busy crowd. And I know that some school groups can come through there, and schedule appointments to come see the exhibit. But yeah.
Well, so that is one of the many
projects
that Upgrade Athens County is involved with. And I noticed that it mentions here about the Georgetown University Energy Prize. Can you tell us something about that and how Upgrade Athens County might be involved with
Absolutely, yes. Well, Upgrade Athens County is a semi-finalist in the Georgetown University Energy Prize. This is a national competition that brings together 50 small communities around the same size as Athens County to work in friendly competition to reduce our energy by the greatest degree over a 2-year period. And the winning community not only gets great accolades for their achievement, but will also receive $5 million.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and of course that would spell real permanent and lasting impact on our local economy if we can really win this prize. So, and yet the beauty of the competition is that even if we don't make it to the final stage and are not the top of the 50, even if we lose, we really win, because for the next 2 years we're making a real push for energy efficiency and renewable energy generation, and all of these initiatives further our community one way or another in the right direction.
Yes. I remember reading in the paper about the fact that Athens County was a finalist for this prize, and so I suppose the other 49 finalists are from all parts of the United States, except they're about the same size. It's a small, medium town sort of thing.
That's
right?
correct, yes.
And the Georgetown, is that associated with the university in Washington, D.C.?
Indeed it is. This is based out of Georgetown University in Washington. And the competitors are across the country. There's one other competitor in Ohio. That's up in Oberlin. Which
they've got a pretty good start on us.
They do. They absolutely do, and certainly have quite a demonstration of progress that we would like to reach as well. So we're a few years behind them in terms of our development, and yet what we see as the opportunity for us is to make strides that we need to go from our baseline to an improved baseline in 2 years. We have a lot of progress that we can make. Oberlin's already made a lot of progress, so for them to
farther ahead,
exactly
farther ahead, maybe they'll not be able to do as much.
It's true. It's the increase measurement that really, I think, demonstrates progress. So who knows? We have a pretty good chance at this. We have a great chance at this.
Yes,
we really do. Yes. But it takes us all to
Have
participate.
you been to Oberlin? Have you seen?
I sure have been to Oberlin, and I've been in touch with their Oberlin project coordinator, and we're in quite good. It's a friendly competition.
Yes,
there's no animosity by any means.
Right. Well, it's been some years. must be at least 10 years since I saw. They had a sort of a special center or special house that's kind of self-fulfilling or whatever. I mean, it's got the water can be recycled. The water recycles. There are plants. It's a sort of a large greenhouse kind of place.
Interesting. I have not heard of that, but I'm curious about it.
That was the thing that I remember best from visiting there.
Excellent.
Some years ago.
Excellent.
But yeah, they've done a lot of different things.
They
so,
have.
But we've got plenty of things that we're doing here too.
We really do. We really
and
do.
have done over the years.
Absolutely. I mean, Athens County has a remarkable amount of. We have more solar homes per capita than anywhere else in Ohio.
Is that right? More solar homes.
Homes, indeed. That I think speaks volumes about how individuals here really do take the matter into their own hands and really do want to, on their own soil, demonstrate energy independence. And
right.
So,
some dear friends of mine whom I've known for several decades are the Beals, William and Carol Beal.
Indeed, yes.
And I can remember, I mean, they had an old house, I don't know, maybe built 1890 or something like that, out there on Robinson Ridge. And one of the first things they did was plant a lot of trees, Became a tree farm sort of place, 20,000 trees or whatever, since it wasn't any longer an active farm.
Sure.
And then in the mid-'70s, they built a little solar home as a place where Carol's mother could live.
Ah.
And it was on a hillside, with a southern exposure.
Sure.
But all glass, on the one side, so the sun would shine in and passive heat, would occur, which is what we experienced a lot out west when I was a girl.
I imagine.
The passive solar
Absolutely,
use,
absolutely.
which is a lot less expensive.
Indeed.
and very pleasant,
Indeed.
So that was one of the first things they did, and then they upgraded their house over the years.
Indeed.
And just recently, there's been an article in the paper, in the Messenger, which featured them. And
it's a great article.
Wasn't
yes,
it great?
Indeed, indeed. I've gotten the pleasure of getting to know William and Carol in the last year. I frequently get to visit and have conversations about energy. And
yes.
William is a novel of information. He just has volumes and volumes of great insights, and he's an excellent contributor to this this project, and making sure that we're taking a vision that I know he's held for a very long time, turning it into reality, and I think it's really...
Well, I knew them when they were active with the Unitarian Fellowship, and in fact, William was the architect.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he produced 13 pages of blueprints. I mean, you need,
and that's such a unique
all
building.
these things, one that shows the plumbing and one that shows the windows and all these different things.
He wasn't the builder, was he?
Well, he was, and we did a lot of that work ourselves.
Okay.
Volunteer. I mean, about all I could do would be to rake gravel or something.
Sure, but contribute,
But I remember the day when the call went out for all the men they could get, 16, I think they rounded up to raise the rafters, which had been built, on the ground, had been screwed together and so forth on the ground.
Wow.
And
like a real barn raising.
But they needed a lot of muscle power
I bet.
help raise those rafters. And
It's a beautiful
So
building.
anyway, that was one of the things that he did, but he had been a mechanical engineer. He was at NASA, actually, in the early days when it was up in Cleveland area, before he came to Ohio University and taught here for about 10 years. And then he founded SunPower.
Yeah.
And was an entrepreneur for a number of years.
Sure.
Now retired from that as well.
Sure.
But of course, their latest thing is an electric car.
Absolutely. He's got us all very excited about the electric car, indeed. And
because with all the solar panels they put on their place and so forth, they have the ability to charge their car from the sun's power.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. And we are, in fact, I didn't get to drive here today in it, but one of the people that work with William is Randall Gabriel, and he has recently purchased a Nissan Leaf, and he and I together are developing what we're calling at the moment the EV Club. And this is a club of not just EV owners and EV enthusiasts, but people...
Electric vehicles.
Thank you, yes. EV is the electric vehicle. Yes, it's a mouthful. We stick with EV.
Yes, right.
But yeah, we are excited about designing a club that helps people understand more about EVs and EV technology, but also have access to EVs as an affordable way to access EVs in the community. So we're developing a plan to provide financing and then support in terms of education and outreach, so that we can really move our community forward to have more electric vehicles on the road, and that means less gasoline-powered cars on the road.
Yes.
That's the goal.
Well, I think I read in the paper quite recently, actually, that the university is going to be installing a place where electric vehicles can be charged up.
Indeed. I was so thrilled about that. And I think they said even 4 different sites throughout the campus.
Is that right?
And they did purchase 4 or 5 Nissan Leafs that are for staff use, maybe students, I'm not real sure, but for faculty.
Yes, and they're getting more of those around now,
Indeed.
which is pretty important because sometimes those electric vehicles run out of steam, out of electricity.
Electricity out of charge. Yeah, it's just one giant battery.
And you have to charge up, and actually it takes several hours usually, doesn't it?
It does. It
Yeah.
does. It depends on how you charge it. You can plug into a standard outlet, and if the car is on empty or the battery's empty, it can take up to 8 to 10 hours to charge it, which for most people is, you get home in the evening from work or wherever you are, plug it in the morning, it's ready to go. But if you're out and about and you run out of a charge, then it's important to be near a vehicle charging station.
Yes.
And that's something that we realize we have to develop more of those. And like you said,
Yes.
OU is already making plans for charging stations
Right.
around campus. And we feel like it's more, yes, it's important to have charging stations, but more importantly, we want solar charging stations. We don't want to add more impact to the brown energy grid that's based on fossil fuels. We want solar grid tied charging stations. So you
Yes.
really are running your vehicle on sun.
Yeah.
So that's the goal.
Well, a couple of years ago, I remember going up to Columbus. This was a couple of years ago. You may remember that event, but they were having sort of a sit-in or stand-in or protest or demonstration at the courthouse. Pardon me, at the State House.
State House, sure.
At the State House in Columbus, and I had a ride with Jeff Greenfield. Jeff Greenfield of Third Sun Solar, who has an electric car.
Yeah.
And he saw that there in the basement of the State House in Columbus, they have a charging station.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, this was 2 years ago at least, I would say.
Excellent.
And so while we were out demonstrating, the car was charging up.
Perfect. They sure are cropping up all over the place. There's plenty of charging stations in Columbus, and all the major cities in Ohio are seeing them, and
getting them going. Yeah.
It's true.
Is there a place anywhere near Athens
to charge your car? Lancaster has a couple of spots. I think, again, I know that the university is moving forward with putting some charging stations in. That might be the very first ones, but mark my words, in the next year we're going to see some crop up.
Yes.
And in public places, that I really think is the goal, because you know, we want these to be public use. This is not, well, certainly private businesses do stand to gain from putting a charging station in their parking lot, you know, better business and opportunity for people to, you know, park and shop and then come back. So there's advantages all over the place.
Well, you see businesses advertising free Wi-Fi these days too, don't you?
It's the same kind of thing, exactly. Give people what they need in terms of technology, and it's an excellent opportunity.
Yeah. So it's that's one of the things that Upgrade Athens County is promoting.
Indeed, yes. Yes, that's a piece of the puzzle. Transportation is a very important part of our energy transition. We need to really come up with solutions there.
Well, we do have other things that are, for instance, even like the Go Bus.
Sure.
Which is, you know, you can get over to Cincinnati, which is 150 miles on
Very
the bus.
affordably.
You can take the bus to Columbus and so on. Often the problem is more with, do they leave at a time or come back at a time when you possibly can really use it? You know?
Absolutely.
But I think they are modifying too, as well as expanding the places to which they're going.
Indeed.
Like Marietta, and I believe I read that there was a Go Bus going to Cleveland now.
I heard the same, yes. I believe you can ride now to Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus, Marietta. I want to say that's the list at this point.
Yeah,
that's a good list. Yeah.
It is. And there are places in between. I mean, you can go as far as Logan, for instance, or as far as Lancaster, you know, and so on. So that is another thing which will tend to scale back the need, shall we say, for the individual non-solar vehicle.
Right, as we say, one less car. That's a good thing.
Yes. I know one of the things that William Beale has long promoted is a kind of a share the vehicle sort of thing, instead of everyone feeling they absolutely have to have their own car.
Right.
Especially if they don't really drive that much. Maybe they only take the car out once a week to go shopping or something.
Sure.
Then people could sign up and trade. I don't know whether that's something that's actually going forward now, or...
Oh, it's certainly being discussed, and I think with the advent of the EV Club, it gives a excellent sort of framework from which more kind of initiatives can jump off of that. So I know that there is a community on the outskirts of Amesville area that is looking at doing a ride share type of arrangement where they have some EVs and they have you know, a pickup truck if somebody needs a pickup truck, and a van if, you know, you're taking a lot of people to or from town.
Right.
And really kind of sharing and cooperating around vehicles depending on what your need is. So I think that makes excellent sense, and it certainly solves a problem.
Where they have this particular one.
Yes, this is a community outside of Amesville that is considering that. So
right. Well, and there are other things being discussed. I believe David Wilhelm has been involved with promoting a solar farm.
Yes, indeed. That David Wilhelm has brought together some partners, developers, investors who all see the potential, obviously recognize the demand in Southeast Ohio for solar energy, and they're moving forward with a project that may be on the scale of a 4-megawatt solar farm, and that's probably enough power for, on average, 450 to 500 homes.
Oh, really?
To put that in perspective. And the idea is that this power would actually be slated for municipal buildings in the city of Athens. So really targeting some of our largest energy users, like schools and public buildings. So,
well, one of the things that Athens already has involved in the solar power area is the parking lot out at the community center.
Isn't that wonderful? Yeah, and that was just
it's been there now about 5 years.
5 years, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that's a great showpiece. It's certainly generating. I think it's upwards of 75% of the. Well, don't quote me on that, but I think it's around that for the community center itself. So they're able to, really offset their electric bill. And that was done through a private project agreement, PPA. So that's more of an interesting, a great sign of progress in Athens County. So.
Well, the public library out on Home Street has solar panels on its roof.
That's true too.
They've only been there about a year, I think, now, or so. Not too long.
Not long, right.
But more and more, and of course, one of the businesses that's most famous is the Village Bakery.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're really pioneering.
I think they are almost totally off the grid with one thing and another, with solar array and wood-fired oven.
And then also a geothermal heat source as well.
So. They have a geothermal right there.
Right there.
They can go down into the ground.
Yeah, it was installed just behind the building and then, repaved. So really, in terms of impact, it's not taking up a large footprint. It's all under the surface. Yeah, the Village Bakery is a wonderful example of how a business in Athens can really capitalize on renewable energy and really gain from not only the investment but also, the PR associated with it.
Yes,
you can really get a lot of exposure that way too. So it's a great way to go.
There are plenty of things that could be done, for sure.
Absolutely. There are places and opportunities everywhere for energy savings and renewable energy generation.
Right.
So it's a good
So they're
time.
keeping you quite busy, Sarah.
I'd say the least, yes. I never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment, but with upgrading Athens County and all that entails. And you are personally located out on Columbus Road, aren't you?
That's where our office is. We have an office in the AceNet campus. So
at the AceNet.
Right there.
And that's one of your supporters. And
yes, indeed. The AceNet's been a wonderful supporter and collaborator.
I pointed out my T-shirt to you when I came in. I haven't actually worn this very often. It's 10 years old. It's from Earth Day in 2005. But as you can tell, it was a homemade in Athens
Absolutely.
TV, and it says something like, don't mess with my future
Aw,
on it.
that's very sweet. It has a good and a bad planet picture
Yes.
there.
Here's the brown one, and here's the blue and green one.
I like
yes.
that. Yep.
And on the back there are a number of the sponsors, including, I think, even the Village Bakery, although I'm not sure about that.
Huh.
But one of the sponsors is the Russ College of Engineering.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. Wonderful.
Which, of course, is very busy this year with the NASA people.
I know. That's a really
Isn't that
cool
wonderful?
opportunity. Absolutely. Yes. We work closely with the Voinovich School and up in their CE3 program. Energy, Economics, and the Environment is the 3 E's in the CE3
Yes.
name. And there's certainly a lot of connections, I think, that the Voinovich School can make tying our project to a broader climate change initiative and really helping take our model and the solutions that we're proposing for the Appalachian region and sharing our story in a more broad context. So
Yes,
it's a great thing.
Something that the Voinovich School can do, which has been working very hard on that now for 20, 25 years, for sure. Well, if they want to get in touch with Upgrade Athens County, what's the best way to reach you, Sarah?
Well, I think probably your first stop might be going to our website if you are on the internet. So there's our website is www.upgradeathens.com.
I see, and the Upgrade Athens, those are all capital letters, but they run together. I mean, it's capital U-P, capital G.
I don't think it matters if you capitalize or not when you type it in. You can just type it in as upgradeathens.com and it'll take you right there.
Right, and what is your phone number out there?
Our phone number, this phone number is for the Energy Advocate, who is our one-stop shop for technical assistance and support. If you're ready to make an upgrade, if you want to have a energy efficiency assessment done to your home to see how much energy you might save if you, say, put new insulation in or upgraded your lighting, then the Energy Advocate can sign you up for that. They're kind of like a coach.
Oh, great. And
so
what's their
if you want to call the Energy Advocate, the number is 740-541-4338.
And that's the Energy Advocate. And
that's correct.
Sarah Conley-Ballew and I have spent a very interesting hour talking about upgrading Athens County. Thanks so much for coming, Sarah.
Thank you. I very much enjoyed it.
This is Lois Whaley for Women Today and Yesterday.